Hello, beloved listeners. This is Adrian, and I'm just sending a little note. What you're about to hear is a conversation that I got to have with Hala, Alyan, the writer, the poet. She recently wrote and posted a New York Times article about the empathy that we're able to feel in this moment and who has to audition for our empathy. And we decided to get on Instagram Live and talk about endurance, like when it comes to watching a genocide unfold, watching war, watching acts of war, watching acts of violence. How do we be in relationship to that? How do we sustain ourselves? So the audio is not great because we're grabbing it off of that Instagram Live conversation, but it felt like such a beautiful and useful conversation that we're hopeful that it feels worth listening through and to. And there's a transcript to go along with it. So if anything is like really unclear, it should be helped by the transcript. But I think you'll get the general idea of what's in here and the wisdom that Hala is bringing into the movement in this moment. All right. Love y'all. It's good to meet you.
It's really, really good to be here.
Mm-hmm. It's Hala?
Hala, yeah, that's perfect.
Beautiful. Thank you for making time and space. I know you're parenting, working, grieving, and being here. I'm really grateful.
Yeah.
And this was a great idea. This is your idea. So I want everyone to know this is Hala's idea for us to come on and talk about endurance, because we are entering a new phase where it's not the initial phase of like just shock and like what's happening, but like we're really, many people are coming into awareness of, oh, there's political history I need to learn. How do I land in this moment? The pivot is not quick. That needs to happen here. This is long-term work. So I'm excited to be in this space with you. Yeah. And I thought first we could meditate with folks, ground folks, and just get here. So, and if you have your own practices for how you ground and center and land in your body, do that. What I'm going to offer is a brief embodiment practice, and it's just very literally like, let's get here. So for me, it helps to close my eyes and drop in. I try to think of it as dropping below my head, dropping below my neck, dropping down into my heart. Let my breath slow down. With each exhale, I just drop a little further down, heart to solar plexus. Solar plexus down to the gut. Also feel that dropping down the spine, down into the center. Down into the belly and the pelvic floor. Down the long bones of my legs. Down all the way to the ground, to the earth, which is always holding me, which can hold me now. What I'm carrying is not too heavy for the earth. And now that you're in there a little bit more, just ask yourself if there's anything your body needs. And if it's something huge like justice or liberation, affirm that. Absolutely, yes. And then see if there's something tangible, immediate, an adjustment, some water, touch. Touch you can bring to yourself. If you're with people, you can hold a hand. As you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Just notice that you're here right now with us. Your miraculous life. This is your choice of what you want to do with it. And Hala, can you share with us the endurance prayer?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you for making space for this. And I would actually say for folks for whom this is accessible to close your eyes again.
Okay, great.
I'm going to just move us through 3 good breaths. And they're just going to be breaths that help reset the nervous system. We're going to inhale through the nose. We're going to hold. And we're going to exhale long and slow through pursed lips, like you're blowing out a candle, to really extend that exhale. So I'll count us in. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once again, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And long, slow exhale, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Final exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And with your eyes closed, I'm just going to read a few lines out. May the dead be granted their dying. May the dead rest. May we witness both in this moment and in any aftermath. May we remember what we've witnessed. May we witness even what is not allowed to be said, what might be censored, what might be blacked out. May those struggling to survive find the endurance to continue surviving. May those witnessing find the endurance to continue witnessing. May we remember. May we have the courage to face our narratives, to interrogate what we've been taught or told. May we hold our narratives up to the light and explore their truth. And may we continue to be grounded and steady in the face of those truths, the truths we know in our bones about our ancestors, our bodies, our places, our histories, our joys, our collective traumas, and our collective resilience. Folks may open their eyes as they feel ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I feel here with you. And I, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's really interesting to feel how emotion lives in the body.
Yeah.
And how often it's like trying to push it somewhere, tuck it, get it somewhere, and then the invitation to just let it come forward, or to let it be here with me. The deepening of my breath, it's like, oh, there's always tears when I deepen my breath. Okay. Yeah. And that's righteous. That's correct.
Right.
I wanted to ask that poem, the endurance prayer that you just
Mhm.
read. Is that yours?
It is.
Okay.
This
Okay. Good.
is something I put
So we
together
can
the last
post
couple
it
of
alongside
Sure.
this. So
Yeah,
folks
yeah,
can begin to incorporate it into their practice.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Poetry is saving my life every day right now.
Same.
Um, Reading it and writing it. So, for folks who are tuning into this, Hala and I are going to talk about self care. We're going to talk about endurance. We're going to talk about witnessing and being in this moment, and being in this moment from a lot of different
Yeah.
locations. So, you know the location that you're in, you know the relationship you have to what's happening right now.
Right.
We're not here to try to move you in terms of your relationship to what's happening right now. It's to help you land in what's happening right now and create more
Right.
possibility. That's, for me, that's the
Right.
thing we need to do in this moment, is in the face of what seems like an end, we
Mhm.
have to create more possibility.
Right.
Um, so the first place we wanted to go was talking about the distinctions between individualistic and collective care. And I
Yeah.
love you were like, we need to tease this so far
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little bit for
Yeah.
people. I'll just say, like, one of the things I've really seen is people being like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to isolate myself. I'm going to turn
Right.
my attention away. I'm going to pull myself away. And then it's either I'm here with the collective,
Right.
not really caring for myself, or I'm away. And so I think trying to help people reorient towards, for me, I'm a fractal presence in a long-term work, and caring for myself is part of
Right.
being able to participate in collective work. So that's what's been guiding me to be like, right, go sleep. You do need to sleep. Go rest.
Right.
You do need to rest. But then tying in and taking care of each other. So I'd love to hear how this is
Yeah.
showing for you right now. What are you practicing?
I mean, I have, I'm not putting what I am advising into as good pride. Like I'm not, practicing it as much as I should be.
That's part
Um,
of why we're doing this,
and
so we
that,
can
and
help
this is a
ourselves.
reminder. This is a reminder for me as
Yeah.
much as for anyone else. And I will say, actually, I felt a little bit of a reset last night. I had some wonderful people over, and we sort of did this kind of collective sharing healing space, and people sort of went around and each kind of brought in an offering. And I think that I had, you know, I've been content. I'm a clinical psychologist, right? So I'm all about like, care is important, community care is important, individual self-care is important, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm finding it hard to apply myself. And so kind of yesterday was a really humbling reminder, because I think I'd set up this space in, coordination with a few friends, just sort of thinking like people need the space, I'll set up the space, kind of as though there was an exceptionalism in myself. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm
They
like,
need care.
I'm
I'll
doing
help
the,
them.
all right, fine. You can,
Mhm.
and by the end of the night, I was like, I mean, I don't know that anyone wept more than I did. Like, I don't think anyone was like, I was sort of like curled up on a daybed, just like hugging a pillow,
Yeah.
and kind of just like incredibly humbled by what that space had done for me. And I think like, I want to frame this for folks around like guilt, because I want to first start by naming like this is a conversation of privilege, right?
That's
Like we're
right.
like the fact that we're able to engage in
That's
this and
right.
talk about this and attend to this is
Yes.
it's a marker of privilege. And I think that's like it's okay to note that, to nod at that, to speak to that.
Yes.
I think one conversation I've been having in different spaces is around, I was talking about it with someone this morning, around guilt, that like I think there's a lot of I feel it. I think there's a lot of people that feel it diasporically. There's a lot of people that feel it within allyship,
Yeah.
of just like what could be more frivolous right
Yeah.
now than thinking about care
Yeah.
when there is such intense suffering happening in the world in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
and depression and all these things. And I would say that I really believe that the most useful thing at this point, especially from discussion with different like psychologists and people in my life, is like when the guilt comes up, it's allowed to be there.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that I actually believe that there's anything more than like more contraction that's going to happen from fighting it,
Yeah.
or setting oneself on a spiral of shame. Like I think there's something I'll put it this way. It's like nobody's ever waged a battle on an emotion and won it, right? Like no one's ever like successfully been like, I'm going to vanquish this feeling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think like there is, and this is like, the Buddhist narratives around like the second arrow and like the idea of like, it is what we do, how we resist an already painful experience can just create more pain
Right.
and more resistance and more contraction and whatnot. And so I think there's something dialectically where both things can be present. It can be like, listen,
Yeah.
I feel guilty. This feels like not enough,
Yeah.
and it feels incredibly beyond really any of our, I think, conceptualizations of fairness or justice,
Yeah. Yeah.
that I would be able to be here having this conversation, with my resources and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that can exist alongside also recognizing that if one does not engage in care, one is not going to be able to show up for the things that matter
That's right.
to them. Like, it's just, you're not going to be able to, And so I think, so I would like this distinction between individualistic and collectivist is like similar to those values that exist within those frameworks, where I think individualistic self-care is not inherently a bad thing. It just is often linked to, I think, a lot of elements of capitalism, consumerism. It's like, it often involves numbing or turning away, retreating, like you said, distracting, and there's a place for, I think, for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's often like, it's often done like the end in mind is to feel better, is to feel less of something that doesn't feel good, and to feel more of something that feels easier.
Yeah.
And that's usually where that framework kind of takes you, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not here to take pleasure away from anyone or ease away from anyone. So like, that's important, right? We need that. Collectivist care, I think, and a collectivist approach to self-care, also thought of as like radical self-care, right? Like Audre Lorde like did a lot of writing around that. Is like, that first part is important, elements of like thinking about what you as an individual, nobody is in exactly your body, exactly your positionality, exactly your space, exactly your needs, other than you. And so needing to do what you within that ecosystem need to feel replenished and alive and okay. Great, but it then continues the script to, and we're doing that to what end? To be of service to the lives, ours and others, to the people, to the places, the things that are important to us, And so it kind of carries it along into this, like, it has a purpose in it, not just in diminishing distress.
That's right. I think that's right. I feel like, I'm really grateful you brought up the guilt piece. I posted something from a niece today that was about the survivor's guilt, and there's just so many layers. I've been really sitting with the guilt of being inside of a forced violation, right? Being like, I'm in a situation where I'm like, I don't want this to happen, and I feel like I'm being forced to participate in this thing that's happening. And I see that happening in so many people, like that it's like, if I just scream harder, and there's a way that we can be like, if I use my whole life force up, maybe then it will work. And there are movement strategies, there's hunger strikes, there are movement strategies that are really tied in to that. It's a viable thing, right? And I think there is a way, the way I approach movement building is very much, you have to find your long-term commitment, commitment that it's like, I'm going to be in movement work. And, for me, I've been in movement work as an organizer, as a facilitator, as an artist. The role has shifted over time, but always I'm like, I know what I'm here on earth to do, and it is to contribute to justice and liberation. And I know that the front lines will continuously move, and I know that where the attention is pouring to in a given moment, right? That's going to keep shifting. But when there's a moment like this, where it's like there's an opening, right? Wherever there's great suffering and great harm and great devastation happening that everyone has to turn and look at, that is an opening for our whole species to say, do we mean any of what we say about never again? no apartheid, about our evolution as a species. Do we mean any of that? Because here's the practice ground now. And I think once you find that commitment, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be doing this my whole life. There's a way that you sleep at night. There's a way that you hydrate yourself. There's a way that you're like, this is the vessel from which my justice work will happen for my whole life. And I got to witness and be mentored by Grace Lee Boggs, who lived to be 100 years old and 100 days old. And her self-care was a part of that, right? That she rested and she swam and she spoke justice into every space that she was in, and she was consistent. And so, you know, one of the things I keep noticing right now, because people are coming and being like, you know, why are you like this? Why is your politic like this? Why are you? And I'm like, having a consistent politic is actually one of the most self-caring things that you can develop, right? Which is not to say a politic that never shifts or doesn't evolve or grow, right? I'm learning all the time.
Because changing one's mind is just powerful.
Exactly.
And I think that's the idea of like thinking about, we are all given an inherent narratives, right? We all do.
Yes.
And I think that's what, to go back to that idea, it's like, it is our responsibility to interrogate them, to sit with them.
Yes.
You know?
Right. And I think of that as part of the care work, right? For me, part of the care work is sitting and being like, you know, I was raised in the U.S. military industrial complex by a military father. I have made it all the way to being an anti-military, anti-war person. That took many micro shifts and a lot of care to be like, I'm trying to get myself in alignment with life, moving towards life, because that's the best thing for my health. That's the best thing for our global health.
Right. And I think there's something really beautiful too about this idea of like, like the consistency, like like, I think there's something about, I mean, this has been a really humbling time for, I think, a lot of people. And I think I will speak for myself, you know, viewing spaces of solidarity and allyship has been so gorgeous, and also has been like, I mean, I always like, you know, I think about like one of the most vibrant spaces of that solidarity has been Jewish Palestinian solidarity. This moment, you know, there's something in the last few weeks where I've really had to be sitting with, and I hope to, and I will continue doing this, is really asking myself how I'm showing up in other spaces too, and how I'm doing, where am I doing that alignment, where am I not doing that alignment? Because there is something about like, if you build that foundational approach for yourself, if you're like, this is my value system, this is my North Star, this is my internal compass, right? Is always going to be in the direction of like everyone being liberated, everybody feeling, you know, like they're being, you know, speaking on behalf of people that are marginalized, speaking on behalf of people that are oppressed. Like, this is going to be, again, my guiding light. Then really, then it does something in terms of clarity, I think, and it does something in terms of steadiness and rootedness. That is a really beautiful thing.
I mean, it means that you can tap into the collective humanity, right? And, you know, Morgan said this when we got on a conversation that was like, moving and being in relationship with people and being in action is actually the medicine. It's part of the medicine. And I have definitely found that, even whether it's big actions or for me, small actions of going to be in care work for Palestinian people in my life, or if it's care work for people who I know are grieving and suffering right now, if it's reaching out, but moving the emotion into action. And just knowing consistently, like, my job is to figure out who is impacted and how do I show up for them. And when I'm impacted, how do I let people show up for me? And what I've been seeing, and I hope you've been seeing this too, is the weaving of love and care that is flowing in the private messages and the DMs and the comments. There's just so much of people being like, I see you. I see the risk you're taking. I see the work you're doing. I love you. I've got your back. And I'm trying to make sure in myself that I'm like, no one is outside of that, right? I'm like, I see show up with me, join me. And if you just got here, it's not too late, which I think is also a part of my care work, is being like, whenever you show up to justice, it's not too late. You got here against all odds and a great machinery. You
And
made it through that.
sometimes against the most odds. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes the people that arrive to these discourses and to these, like, you know, actions and spaces of solidarity have had to overcome so much to get there. And I think this is a really big part of kind of how I think about this stuff, is like, I deeply believe in restoration. And I deeply, like, I think if that grace is not offered, then people become afraid. They become afraid of learning different, like I think if we don't normalize changing one's minds, you know what I mean? We don't normalize like being like, one might have been, you know, presented with with only certain things for an entire lifetime, you know? And like, and if you showed up, you showed up. You know, there's no such thing as the wrong moment to show up. Like you showed up, like welcome, you know. And again, I think, like, you know, there just is something to be said for, there's just something to be said for, I think, being like really allowing it to be okay to have had viewpoints and perspectives and stances that one can go back on and be like, I don't stand by that anymore. I was wrong.
And I think actually the whole world changes because we are able to do that. Like it's actually, in this moment, I'm like, I have no desire to show up to someone and say, I'm right. I'm on the right. I even keep hearing, you know, we keep saying, I'm on the right side of history. I'm like, I don't want to be on the right side of history. I want to be a part of the intervention we make right now. And if I have to change in some way to make this intervention, I want to make that. And the more I know that I'm making that, the more I'm able to both trust my offer and trust. It's like all of what we're offering right now is so small. We can't throw any of ourselves away, and we can't throw any of anyone else away. But I want to ask you a question, because you said, you know, I'm going to talk about this, but it's hard for me to practice. And so I want to bring it home to us right now as people who are like in this, you know, and I know as a writer, for me, like a lot pours through, or sometimes I'll just notice that, like, okay, yesterday I just sat and wrote, trying to find the perfect words and the perfect argument and the perfect thing that's like, if someone just reads this paragraph, they will never be able to be on the wrong side. This is the paragraph.
This is the sentence. We're all up at night hunting for the sentence and hunting for the metaphor. I know,
right? And I'm like, my brain feels full of words. I'm just like, I can't get them out of me fast enough. And Shami Ali wrote this poem, this line that's like, we all wish to write the poem to stop this death. And I keep being like, I know that I'm doing that. And so I want to offer, like, what's been really helpful for me is being like, you know, the other day on Friday, when I was like, I could turn and try to start writing, or I could just get on and reach for a connection. And that's what I chose. I was like, let me just get on here and just see if anyone comes in. If one person comes and sits with me and is like, this is happening right now, let's be together. I think that might help more than like writing a 20 paragraph thing about Zionism. So I did that. And then I realized I needed to move my body. And that I was like, oh, my body has been sitting here unattended to while my mind tried to do something that's beyond the scale of what I can actually do as a human. And I have to bring it back into balance. So for me, swimming is the way that I do that, because if nothing else, even if I don't swim very well, or if I don't swim very fast, by moving I'm away from the computer, I'm away from my phone, I'm away from incoming. And it just gives my body a chance to integrate just a little bit of, you're still alive, there's more to do, and you will do it. And you've got to move it through the whole body. And I even think, like, anything that I need to leave in the water, let me leave it in the water. And 3 or 4 times I have just sat at the end of my swim and kind of cried and like let it go into the water, because I'm just like, the water, the earth, like there's bigger things. So that's a little bit of how I've been intervening on myself, because I can see the ego part of me. The ego part of me shows up and is like, I shall stop this single-handedly. And if only I was the best leader in the world.
Right,
And
right.
then I'm like, that's ego. That's even empire, right? There's an empire. There's a little emperor in all of these imperial people that we are, which thinks we know how to fix the world. And I'm like, calm down, emperor. You don't actually know how to fix the world. You're not going to resolve this. You won't stop World War III necessarily, but you can show up.
You're welcome here, right?
Yes,
To go back to that thing, it's like,
exactly.
you're welcome here. You're
Yes.
playing a role.
Yeah.
You're probably the protector part.
You
You're
want
doing
to
something,
care.
the value. You care so much.
Yeah.
As little emperor, that you want to single-handedly, you know what I mean, intervene in the world. Like,
yes.
Bless you.
Yes.
Blessings to you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
And there is a time and there's a space for that. And I'm going to call upon you when I'm working on this essay, or when I'm trying to organize something,
exactly.
or when I'm trying to whatever, right?
Exactly, right? Or in the comments, right? I've been letting the little emperor show up for my comment page,
Beautiful.
right? I'm just sort of like, let's go have a conversation, right?
Sure,
and that's okay.
Sure.
But I'm much more suited, you know, there's a goddess as well. And the goddess is like, this pain is very, very old. This struggle is very old.
Yep.
And this is the phase that we carry. Like, our generation is tasked with this part of it, right? And I have to give as much as I can to all of it. So I wanted to ask you what you do. What are your, you know, if you can notice that the intervention is needed, and then what do you do from that moment?
I mean, I think it's been, I think, like for a lot of us, just a time of overwhelm. And I think it's also been a time of, my friend called me the little hypocrite the other day, and I laughed a lot, because I think it's also been a time of a lot of like, hi little hypocrite, how's it, welcome. I think it's also been a time of like, again, this is, I will come back to this sentiment of like humility, of just sort of like, okay, what are the things that I'm espousing? What are the things that I believe? What are the things that I speak about with colleagues and clients and friends and loved ones, and how am I applying or not applying that, and where's the discrepancy? And I think to this point of like the little emperor, or the part that's like, well, I have to run myself ragged, it is a very, I mean, to go back to that individualistic idea, like it is kind of based in this like very individualistic narrative. That is not, that I will speak for myself, does not work for me actually very well, right?
So far hasn't liberated us.
Limitations of that very quickly. And I will say, you know, I wrote, like, I had the op-ed that I wrote last week that came out a few days ago, was one that I wrote,
which was a gorgeous, glorious, perfect thing.
Thank you.
It was really the most beautiful thing. Like, I was like, I don't care about paywalls. I'm putting this whole thing on the internet, because I was like, my people don't pay for this, but they're going to read it.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And it started as just a post that I had posted the week before, that I did. I know it was like 3 a.m, and I was sitting on my little armchair in my living room because I couldn't sleep. And I'm sure you have this experience. I think most people that are like, you know, artistically inclined do, where you're just like, it feels very strange to even then attach your name to a thing. Do you know what I mean? Because you're just like, this is just something that came it came out, and then obviously needed some like reworking and editing. But I think that felt very, you know, it's an interesting time. I think, again, dialectically, it's like useless, useful is a lot of the feelings, right? It's a lot of like, you know, what is this actually doing concretely for anyone on the ground? Nothing, you know. And I think there's again, I go back to the thing of like, it's important to hold those things at the same time. Like, it might be doing something for people diasporically, it might be doing something for allies, it might be doing something for people that are thinking and questioning and learning and educating. That eventually is an important thing, and that eventually is a ripple. But to be able to, like, I think there's something in I keep coming back to the terms, like, there's something in replenishing and there's something in humility. And I think having those two things exist at the same time is really important. And so for me, yes, writing is a big one.
Can I just interrupt you there? I just want to say one thing, because not to be like, no, I do think, so the piece that you wrote, it's why do Palestinians have to audition for empathy? And I think that it actually does do something for people on the ground in this moment, right? Because what I saw happen was people looked at it and people were DMing and they were like, oh my God,
Mm.
I've been struggling with this, which means then I'm like, okay, these are some Palestinians that you can go look at that are on the ground right now that are
That's a
doing
good,
this,
that's
right?
lovely.
And
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
people that are actually saying like, I will go and I will at least look, because I think so much of what's
Mhm.
happening right now is people are like, I'm not
I
going to
can't
look
look.
because those are, I don't, and I'm like,
Right.
just
Right.
look.
Right.
If you look, you will
Right.
see
Right. Right. Right.
yourself, you will see your
Right.
children, you
Right.
will
Right.
see
Right.
your
Right. Right.
family, you will
Right.
see, right? So I do want to say,
That's a beautiful and generous framing. I will take it. I will say thank you. I will
thank you.
sit with it. Yeah, I think anytime, I guess there is a larger framing here. That's a good point of like anything that can invoke curiosity in a time where it's apathy and indifference
Yeah.
that are perhaps the most lethal
Yes.
things on a sort of global
Yes.
scale, that I think there is something to, because I
Yeah.
struggle with, I think a lot of artists do, where it's just like, what is art in a time like this? What's the
Exactly.
function? What's the whatever,
Totally.
where it's like,
Absolutely.
well, I think anything that can get curiosity going might sort
Yeah.
of have that. um yeah, I think also to your point of like the swimming, I think like somatically, listen, the parts of our
Yeah.
ecosystem and our nervous system that are overloaded, that are, maybe experiencing some trauma, maybe getting re-traumatized, like depending on what you're kind of coming into it with. They're like, I was just saying this earlier, it's like they're really old they're not parts, they also don't, they're not verbal.
That's
I
right.
can't sit down and negotiate, you know what I mean, with my like nervous system and be like, listen, but honey, like, let's, like, maybe I can do affirmations eventually, but yes, eventually the brain listens to the brain. But like truly the quickest way to reset is to have the body do things that it would not be able to simultaneously do if it was in grave, immediate,
That's
current danger.
that's
So if
right.
I'm taking a deep breath and stretch, like who does a 4-7-8 breath
That's right.
that we did in the beginning when they're also like, swimming away from a shark?
That's right.
Like you can't do those two things at once. You can't hum like deep, 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 deep into your belly and into your chest
That's
and
right.
also be like, like in mortal danger,
That's right.
you know? And so there's some way in which you kind of like have to figure out how to hack the ecosystem that you would
Yeah.
reside in.
Yeah.
I also think for me, there's a lot of replenishment in thinking sort of critically and precisely about witnessing. And we've talked, we
Yeah.
were talking about this. What is it to bear witness? Like, what is the function of it?
Yeah.
And I think there's something really honorable in the act of bearing witness. And I want to say, it's like there's something beautiful about bringing oneself fully, you know, to others'
Yeah.
suffering, to others' oppression,
Yes.
to moments of oppression, to moments of suffering within our capacity.
Yeah.
Because we go back to what we were
Yeah.
saying earlier, right?
Yeah.
If everybody burns out, that's of no use to
That's right.
anybody, actually.
That's right.
And so if we're thinking about this functionally of like, what is my value added,
Yeah.
and again, from like not really a capital, but from like an emotive place, like
That's
what's my value? What am I going to bring here?
yeah.
How am I going to orient myself to what matters to me? Then getting compassion fatigue, getting burned out is not, it's not going to
It's
help
not
anyone,
gonna
least of all
help anyone.
yourself,
Yeah.
And so there's something about also asking, okay, so when I'm going to do acts of bearing witness, which for me, I think for a lot of us has been, following on the ground
Yeah.
accounts and bearing witnesses to images and clips. And again, one needs to ask themselves if it's within their capacity to do
Yeah.
that. It's not, there's no one only way to show up, right?
That's right.
But
That's right.
like, I think for me, that's one of the ways that I've been doing it, because for me, I've, been kind of contending with this idea of like, people are taking these videos. Who are they taking them for? They're not taking them for themselves. Like, like who are they asking to bear witness
That's
to them?
right.
But to really then the next, part of that is to say, okay, so then how do I regulate myself to the best of my
Right.
ability? How do I soothe my nervous system to the best of my ability? How can I be as steady as I can
Yeah.
to be able to access the coping and the resources, etc., that I need to be
That's
able to bear witness to these things, and then be able to sort of like digest it, properly, and be able to do, we show up in different ways
yeah.
for it. Like, I think that it's painful bearing witness, but it's so necessary. And I think it's really particularly important in moments where people and communities are facing
Yes.
erasure, or narratives are facing
Yeah.
distortion or
Yeah.
censorship. Like, I think there's something really, even spiritually, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but like there's something also about like bearing witness is also a commitment to the truth,
Oh,
you know
absolutely.
It's a commitment to like, I'm going to seek truth, and then I'm going to tell it, and then I'm going to hear it. I'm going to like listen to it. I'm going to find it. And then
I'm going to immerse myself in it. I mean, I think that it's been, for me, one of the biggest pieces, you know, I think throughout history, one of the ways that empire has been able to work and the ways that colonialism has been able to work is because the worst of our activities were done out of sight. And so all you experienced was the privilege or the benefit of this thing that was done out of sight. And maybe you even heard about it or you saw stuff afterwards, but it was done out of your sight. And so then those leaders could get away with horrific things that go against the self-identity of the people who are benefiting from it, right? I think that right now, and I think that that's been true until very recently, right? Like that is, we are living in the first couple of decades where
exactly correct.
We can actually not just rely on mainstream media and channels that belong to somebody who benefits from the harm. Right? But we actually have direct access to each other. And I've been watching kids younger than me, my nibblings, and how they're just like, I'm directly involved with people in these places, right? I have a direct relationship. And so what that does to me is I'm like, I'm bearing witness so that I will know when the lies come that they are lies, right? I'm bearing witness so that I know that what the truth of a situation is. And you know, it's been really helpful, right? It's been helpful, like as our president comes and it's like, oh, da 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 da. I'm like, da 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 da. That's not true. We know that's not true, and it's not a talking point that you can feed to us anymore. So for me, the bearing witness has that part, but on a spiritual level, I also feel like there is a way that we do take in and integrate lessons as a species, right? There's a way that we take in stuff and we're like, you know, when people see images, right? I remember Tupac wrote about this. It's like, if I'm going to show you my hood, I'm going to show you what's actually happening here. Because if he had seen, I read this beautiful piece where he's like, he had seen images out of Vietnam and how the anti-war movement for Vietnam really stepped up once these images came back. And so he's like, I'm going to tell you images of what's happening in my neighborhood. I'm going to just tell you the stories. And so I've always thought of that I'm like, if you see, even if you don't change your mind right away, you have to sit with what you've seen. You have to contend with it, right? And I also hold the balance for myself of like, how much can I take? And why am I watching, or why am I witnessing? And what is it that I'm paying witness to? So, you know, for Black life, like when people are shot and killed here, I'm like, I don't need to see it to believe that it was unjust, and I don't need to see it to believe something. And I think that's the practice I've been with Palestine, with Gaza right now. So I'm like, I'm not looking because I don't believe, and I'm trying to prove to myself that something's happening. I'm at this point witnessing because there are Palestinians on the ground who are saying, at least watch, at least witness this. It's like, if you can't do anything else, if you have done all the other things and you have marched and now the lights are out and the power's going up, I'm just bear witness, right? And so I think there's something really powerful about the people who are bearing witness are the ones who get to shape what comes next, right?
Absolutely. And I think there's something too with this piece also of like, when you're like, and it doesn't, and whether that does anything to what you feel or what you, whatever in the moment, you have to contend with that. And and it sits with this idea of like I really believe in, there's something about like, you know, in addiction work, you can talk about like not robbing people of their rock bottom, you know, by like enabling whatever, you know, there's something similar in like not robbing people of their own reckonings, you know, and their own integrative work and of their own like having to sit with and having to contend and having to face. Like there's something in, one can help facilitate if someone is interested in, you know, having conversations or learning or educating, whatever. But I think there is something in letting people sit with what they need to sit with.
I also think there's something around being responsible for the power you do have, right? There's a way that this whole thing is structured to make you feel powerless, to make all of us feel powerless. And yet I'm like, you know, watching a 13-year-old in Raza who's like, I'm journaling and I'm telling you my story. And I'm like, you have power. You do have power. your power is shaping me, and I have a platform, and I'm going to then shape the people that I can reach. And some of the people I can reach, they might have a very small platform. They might have a very intimate group of people. But I think we also underestimate that relationship is still how most change happens. So it's not, it's like, it's not the performance of this. I'm like, what I want to do is witness something and witness it well. I want to be a good witness, right? Accurate witness. I want to turn and be like, I'm not adding any accoutrement to this story.
Right.
This is what happened. And I can turn and say, I'll give an example. My father was in the Pentagon on 9/11, right? And it was a really big, I was in New York. He was at the Pentagon. His office was destroyed. I didn't learn until later that he had left, that he wasn't there. But that whole day I thought I had lost him. And it's this thing. But then because he was in the military, afterwards, he went running with the Hawks towards war. And I went running towards peace. And we couldn't talk. For a long time. We could not hear each other. And 20 years have passed. And one of his best friends now is this Palestinian man whose family had to run to Lebanon, and they've become the homies. And because of the relationship they have, and the relationship I have worked to have with him, sitting and talking to my dad now, 20 years on, is a radically different experience than it was, right? He's able to hear, he's able to witness, he cares. I can feel him holding the nuances of the situation. And it's not like he didn't spend 30 years in the military, but he is a completely different human, right? And that different human will show up differently in terms of how he votes, how he organizes, how he cares, how he talks to his own family. And I think we forget that that's how movements still build. Right? No matter how many devices we develop and how many mailing lists and all, it's still going to be a heart-to-heart relationship that fundamentally gets people to let go of what they grew up thinking and to step onto the limb of something else. And you have to actually, I think, be fairly regulated to truly be in those conversations. Right? If I come screaming at someone and I'm like, you're a fucking liar, and I'm like, everything in that person goes to defend, right? And I'm like, at the marches, I love watching the energy that we spill into that, but I've seen so much love in those spaces that folks it just feels like we're maturing in some way that we hadn't even noticed, because there's so much like relationship matters. And we're witnessing, to me, even when I'm witnessing a journalist, I'm like, I'm creating a relationship with you.
I'm invested. I'm
investing.
I think there's something, and I will add to that too. Like, I think there's something about, again, different people have different capacities, and different people, because of their positionality, can be asked to do different things, right? Like, I think there's something in the, like, there are people who I would not be like, I need you to regulate your nervous system so that you can go have this conversation. There are people where I'd be like, I don't think you're the one that should be having this conversation. I don't know that that's safe for you to have. That might be the work for the ally. Like, that might be work for that's ally.
No, I know there's. I'm the person who actually would like, don't send her to talk to the police because I cannot be regulated. I can't do it.
So it's like that's the work of that. There are people, and and those people are out there, and they're doing that work, right? And so I think there's something in like also figuring out like who can be asked to do what and in what spaces and in what capacity. And to your point of like your father and like watching the 13-year-old and whatnot, it's like I think it goes back to this idea of we like bearing witness is a very easy way to form relationship, and also to start to think about interconnectedness, right? So I'm bearing witness. If I'm bearing witness with clarity, unflinchingly, without like retreating, then pretty soon I'm going to be in a space where I'm like, I want for you what I have. If I feel ease, I want that ease for you. If I have water, I want that water for you. If I have electricity, I want that electricity for you. Right? If I have anesthesia, I want that anesthesia for you. Like, do you know what I, like you start to be like, I want the things that bring me ease and love and joy and connectedness. I want that for you.
Well, and going back to your piece of writing, that was, part of what I loved about it was people don't realize that they're participating in a dehumanization. So often you don't realize that we take for granted, oh, you're from a developing country, or you're from one of these war-torn places, and so
You
like
look different.
you don't even
You think
realize
differently.
you
Whatever.
must,
Right.
yeah, you don't even need electricity. You don't even need that. And it's like, what are you talking about? But then sometimes you don't realize it until you see it, you know, like in these moments where it's like, now the electricity is gone. Now the water is gone. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Just, do you understand what it
Yeah, like
actually means? And like,
someone in Gaza is not immune to drinking. Like they can't drink
no,
seawater. Do you know what I mean? The same way
exactly.
you can't drink seawater,
Exactly.
they can't drink seawater.
Exactly.
But I think for some, not for some, for all of us. I mean, I think this is where the humility has
Yes.
to come in. Like I think that like that seems like a very rational cognitive like step, but that leap can feel really far if and the thing that bridges it is the witnessing,
Yes.
is the not looking away. Do you know
That's
what I
right.
mean? It's the vulnerability and it's the turning towards.
Yeah.
You know? And that can be the thing that connects this idea from that, like, you know, that connects that idea from that idea.
I love it. And, you know, this, I think this brings us into that space of like talking about endurance, because part of it for me, what I have learned in my life is that everything that I'm able to do well is because of endurance, is because I'm like, I build up my endurance, I build up my capacity. I actually integrated into my identity that I am the kind of person who has the endurance for this thing, whatever it is, right? So when I go swimming, I'm like, I'm swimming 45 minutes, I'm swimming an hour. I have built up the endurance to sustain that, and I go every day. I make it so that the days I don't go, that's the anomaly. And I feel the same way with this justice work, right? Where it's like every day I'm going to show up and find a way to witness, to take the action. Right now, it's like every day I'm making these phone calls, because making the phone calls is one of the things that I can do that matters. And every day I'm finding what is the content that I can uplift in case that someone will see that, right? So I want to talk a little bit about endurance, because I've also been a part of movements where the thing comes up and then it goes, it comes up and then it goes. And there can be this feeling of like, well, and I can feel it now. People are like, well, what about this crisis and this one and this one and this one and this one? And it's so brief, actually, right? And I'm like, all of those are also crises that need our attention. And so one thing I've been holding is I have to trust that my attention is moving where it needs to move in the right timing for me to be able to do what I can do for that issue. And that part of living in the privilege that I live in is I actually have a lot of attention to give. And I have a lot of attention. I have a lot of creative attention. I have a lot of, I've got a good bed. I can take baths. I can take care of myself. And then I have a lot to offer. I fill the cup and I have a lot to offer. And so the endurance is like, I'm the kind of person who's always going to show up for justice. And I think if people took that on, it's just like, for the rest of my life, my commitment is I'm going to show up for justice. That's the default. And you can count on me being the kind of person who's going to do that. That's what I'm going to do, right?
It goes back to that earlier point too of foundationally. If you build that foundation, right, then you don't have to have that whole back and forth internally. You know, because then you're just like, I've committed to this thing as a practice, as a perspective, as a value system. And so when I encounter it, that naturally, that's where my attention is going. Of course, that's what I'm going to show up for. And I think there's also something about also being mindful of like, look, thinking about the attention economy. There's a lot of like beautiful books that are written about that. Like there is something in like, what, your attention is a commodity. It is. And distracting and pulling at it and putting it here and putting it, is sometimes done by design.
Absolutely.
And so also, I think protecting, it's interesting because it's like when I'm only thinking about this right now or formulating it aloud. Like there's something when we think about how to protect our. I mean, it's probably a thought a billion people have already had, but I am coming to it right now.
Fresh for you.
Exactly. But there's something about like thinking about this. When we think about how to protect, like, conserve and replenish our I just always use this word, like ecosystem, our physical capacity, our mental capacities, our emotional capacities, that our attention is part of that, So how am I also going to protect that? Because it is maybe, especially in times like this, especially in times where, like there are certain communities or narratives or whatever that are facing sort of erasure, that like this might be the most precious resource that one has.
It is. I mean, if it was, we wouldn't have so much effort put into shutting it down, stopping it, redirecting it. It's one of the reasons why as soon as I saw what had happened, the first thing that emerged in me was free Palestine. It's really important to say free Palestine as soon as possible as the response to any trauma that happens in that area, right? That it's like everything that's happening, for the hostages to be released, for people's deaths to be honored, all of it is tied into the freedom of people, right? That you know, it was like
freedom that's conditional isn't freedom, and so it's
exactly.
Freedom for everyone.
It's always
right?
freedom
for everyone,
right? And feeling like I know, because I have been steeped in movement for a long time, that saying that one people need to be free is never an anti anyone else. I know that because, again, endurance and showing up right over time allows that. And so what I can see in people is I'm like, if you think that, then that's the place where your work can deepen. That's the place where your analysis can deepen. And for me, there's also still places where my analysis can deepen, right? Like I'm really thinking a lot about, you know, my heart is a pacifist heart. Like I have a pacifist heart. I know that about myself. And I always know that, especially since my sister started having kids and my best friends all started having kids, I know that for the sake of children and their freedom, I would do different things that I would even do for my own, right? And I've been like, I have to also recognize that part of myself, the part of myself that's like, I would protect them. I would protect them with my own life. I would protect them with anything. And can I expand my heart to everyone else's children that way? And if I can't, how far can I go?
Child, exactly. What happens if any child is everyone's child?
Anyone's child is everyone's child.
I mean, the data that just came out recently, that was like the number of children that have been killed in Gaza at this point surpassed the past 3 years of any conflict like zone in the world.
And that's, again, I'm like, it, you know, this is where I'm like, it's so, I don't know, there's a beauty to it, but it's a sharp beauty. But I'm like, if you can notice that you're okay with that some part of you is like, I still have, well, what about this? If any part of you is not just like, stop, end of sentence, that's whatever's happening, stop. It's right? I'm like, then that's your humanity that needs some attending to, right? That's where you start. And then I think the endurance, that to me, there's a piece of that that's like, if I can say I'm always going to be learning and I'm always going to be expanding my heart, because as a function of colonization, people have tried to make it narrow, right? And so part of my work is to be like, oh, I don't only care about the people who come from me, who look like me. I don't only care about that. I care about all of them, right? And there's something to do. When there's a moment where there's something to do, right? Like, what is the thing that I can actually attend to? Specifically for people who pay taxes in the U.S., specifically for people who are citizens here, we're in this interesting moment where we're slipping into fascism. And so our endurance we're tired already. Everyone is exhausted already. It's been a really rough decade or lifetime, right? It's been a really rough time. And so I want to tell people, I'm like, stagger in whatever ways you need to stagger, because we're actually not going towards easier times. Like there's no movement in the works right now that is moving towards easier times. Everything is moving towards more chaos, more confusion, more fascist oppression, more like what we've seen, that, you know, when you can't speak freely about, that's a sign of being inside of fascist conditions, right? So for that reason, right, I'm like, stagger yourself. Think about how you need to, and I want to point out like hey, Fozzie did this really beautiful fundraiser and then was like, okay, I'm going to take a couple days. I really pushed hard to do this, and now I'm going to take a couple days and restore and said it publicly, and then was like, okay, here I am back. And if you feel like you have that relationship with your followers or with whoever else, like it's okay to say like, hey, I just need a little time. I want to encourage people to ask for help and like have a team. I have a squad of people around me right now who just keep checking on me and being like, are you okay?
Yes.
I know what happens when you start going. Are you did you go get your swim in? Have you eaten? Have you drunk some water? And just asking these basic care things. So Hala, Have you had some water today?
It's funny because I've not really. I'm drinking it. I'm drinking it. I've had whatever is this much of water, and it's 3 p.m. So probably not great. I do have I've someone also similarly that's just been like, have you eaten?
Great.
Like, did you put anything in your? Yeah. I mean, I think there. I think that, starting to feel the characteristics of burnout
Yes.
is like such a good
Yep.
reminder
Yep.
to regroup,
Yes.
to reset,
Yes.
and to think about. And I think exactly in the terms of like stagger, and also this idea of like there, if I gotta take a step back, there is a there's a robust, vibrant, gorgeous community out there.
Oh yeah.
Someone's gonna step in.
Oh,
You
oh
know,
yeah.
there's going to be people stepping in and stepping out and doing all sorts of things. And I think that goes back to the individualistic thing, right? If we're looking at it as a collective,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, yeah, you can sit down. Yes, you can take a nap.
Yes.
Yes, you can take a beat because we're part of this larger thing.
That's right. That's right. I mean, again, relationships, right? Like,
Right.
and also everyone's going to play a different role, right? So I'm like, I know what my body can do and can't do. I can sit and write a poem and put that poem out. I
That's
can
right.
handle the
That's
I
right.
can handle the energy that comes back. I can do that however many times I need to do it, and it's all good. I can engage in, the conversations that people want to engage in around this. I can do that.
Right.
I can't walk for very far, so I don't walk for very far.
So it's
I
not going to
do
be
other
that
things,
way.
right?
Right.
And I
Right. Right.
do think there's a way of also tuning in. It's like your job is like I can sit at 3 a.m. and receive a piece that I can put out into the world
Right.
that can help, and other people can do other things. Um,
I'll
One of
give
the
an
things I keep telling
example. I
people is
can
make sure you're doing something, right? Like just because you can't do what everyone else can do, like just find your thing. Then be like, I love someone posted this because I'm like, I hate talking to people on the phone. And I'm like, for justice, I will do it. But someone posted, they were like, just call at night. No one's there at night. And then you can
I
leave your
love
message
you. Leave a
and you
message.
still get tallied.
You can leave a message. Yeah.
You just leave your message, you still get tallied. So I've been starting to do my calls
Right.
like, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can call multiple times, say, I'm a resident of this place
Mhm.
and ceasefire and in the occupation. And that's all you have to say, right? But people are sharing more and more tools with each other about that care. I also want to point to, if you go to the Ruckus Society's page, there's some really good stuff about care inside of action. Like, if we are going to be in action around this for a while. And so if you're going to the actions, how do you take care of yourself? How do you take care of each other? How do you be mindful about a rest, mindful about the risks that you're taking? There's actually, we've never had as many resources and tools and
There's
teachers
a tremendous amount
as we
of
have
it.
right now.
Yeah.
I could talk to you, I can tell, forever and ever.
I'm the same.
I'm like, you're my friend.
This is it.
I was like,
This
I'm
is it.
keeping you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, I thought we could end with some poetry.
Love
And
that.
I wonder if you would share a poem with us first. And then I thought I might read, I have a poem to share. And then there's this poem from June Jordan that I think would
Perfect.
be really helpful. Okay, great. So
Perfect.
let's go into the poetry realm.
All right. All right. I'm gonna read a poem called Revision, that actually is a revision of a poem that I had written a while ago.
Okay.
And so this piece I wrote it in the last couple of weeks. It starts with a line from Ghassan Kanafani in a letter to his son. And the line is, I heard you in the other room asking your mother, Mama, am I a Palestinian? When she answered yes, a heavy silence fell on the whole house. It was as if something hanging over our heads had fallen, its noise exploding, then silence. I don't mean to hate the sparrows. I don't mean to close my eyes and see fire, a flood of concrete, leaflets the size of grotesque snow. I don't mean to rehearse evacuation that isn't mine to rehearse. From the grocery store to the house, from the house to the river, from the river to the airport, here are the rules. There is a road, and it's gone now. There is a sea, and you can't drink its water. How far can you carry a toddler, a middle-aged dog? How far can you go in 65 seconds, 32 seconds, 11 seconds, 2? If you have a favorite flower, now's the time to redact it. If you have a mother, now's the time to move her to the basement. If you don't have a basement, I don't mean to profit from this poem, but I do. I don't mean to say I, but I do. Here are the rules. The rules are redacted. Redacted is redacted. Redacted is a red herring. Redacted is a billboard with 8,022 names. Here are the rules. I had a grandmother once. She had a memory once. It spoiled like milk. On the phone, she'd ask me about my son, if he was fussy, if he was eating solids yet. She'd ask if he was living up to his name. I said yes. I always said yes. I asked for his name and it was redacted. I dreamt of her saying redacted, redacted, redacted. How deep in the earth can you burrow with your 4 hearts? Here are the rules. There is no bomb shelter. There is no ship. You can leave. Why aren't you leaving? You can resist. Why aren't you resisting? On the phone, my grandmother would call me her heart, her soul, her 2 God-given eyes. She'd ask if I wanted to visit Palestine again. I never brought her back any soil, but she liked one story, so I tell it, calling me sister and daughter and sister, and I told her how he skipped work and drove me past the gardens to the highest point, and we waved to Beirut. I waved to her, and later she said she was waving back. Never mind her balcony faced the wrong direction. Never mind the sea a terrible blue. Never mind there never was a sun. Here are the rules. If you say Gaza, you must say redacted. If you say redacted, you must say redacted. Here are the rules. If there is a microphone, do not sink into it. If there is a camera, do not look it in the eye. Here are the rules. You can't redact a name once it's been spoken. If you say redacted, you must say redacted. If you say Gaza, you must say Gaza. If you look, you must look until there is no looking left to do. Here are the rules. Here's my mother-given name. Here's my small life. It is no more than any other. Here's my grandmother, dead for 5 years. She's speaking again. She calls when I'm not expecting. Kif ibnik, she says. Where is he now? Let me say hello. What could I say back? He's good, I tell her. I pretend to call a child from the other room. I pretend to hear the sea from over here. I wave back. Here are the rules. We bear what we bear until we can't anymore. We invent what we can't stand losing. The sun sets on Gaza. The sun rises on Gaza, on your redaction, on your blue pencils, on your headlines, on your God-given eyes. He's good, I tell her. He's good. He's crawling. Mashallah, mashallah. Together we praise the sea and the sun. Together we praise how much he's grown.
Oof.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can find it.
It's not. I think it's going to be coming out by Guernica soon, but it's not out anyway. It's not published yet.
Okay. Beautiful. I'm ready for it. Like, yes. Let's see. I'm gonna read the latest one I wrote. It's called "Even Now Between Us." The words are full of love and vibrant root systems and small bags of zatar and the laughter of children and the call for peace. The words are welcome. The words are comfort. The words are a witness to atrocity, and then warning, wait, wait, and then wailing. The words are pacing inside of a fence, wanting someone to listen to the song of the olive tree facing the roaring bulldozer. The words are growing, like everything grows. But the world of words is getting smaller, so many mouths filling with fire. The words are older than the border, and growing old inside the border, and each body is somehow becoming a border. The words are piling up inside of people told their love is violence, weeping over white bags full of all the other stories. Unspeakable words become seed or suicide. The words, now bloodstained, play without parents, silent under the rubble. But the seeds are still love, planted deep in the earth. The seeds know they are always and forever home. The seeds are as animal as we are, as innocent as we are, as ancient as we are. The seeds will grow wild, vast, and tall. The seeds are watered by the tears of each survivor and the half of the world who believes in their existence. The seeds dance diasporic grief into a drum that only knows the rhythm of the heart. The seeds are full of freedom, the only fruit which can grow everywhere, even now, between us. The seeds will free everyone one day, even those who press them into the dirt.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And then I have June Jordan to close us out.
Yeah.
June Jordan, Black feminist, poet, the best. And this poem that I'm about to post is also in the latest little meme carousel. This is from June Jordan's essay, Breast Cancer, Still Here, February 1999. Activism is not issue specific. It's a moral posture that steady state propels you forward from one hard hour to the next. Believing that you can do something to make things better, you do. Something rather than nothing. You assume responsibility for the privilege of your abilities. You do whatever you can. You reach beyond yourself in your imagination and in your wish for understanding and for change. You admit the limitations of individual perspectives. You trust somebody else. You do not turn away. Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Breath, meditation, understanding, commitment, witness, endurance, and poetry. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's the way. That's the way. Hala, I adore you. I'm so grateful for your existence.
Yeah,
I'm going to text you more afterwards and be your friend. I'm going to save this. That was June Jordan. So Hala read Hala's poem. I read my poem. And then the last one was from June Jordan. I'm going to post this on my page. I'll invite you as a collaborator. So it'll live on both of our pages. And folks who heard this, if you know of people who need this medicine, please share it with them, or write a poem or take an action or take a bath. We love you all.
Yes, we love you. Bye.
All right. Bye, loves.